I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. Let me recognize the gentlelady from Alabama, Ms. Sewell, to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have the opportunity today to advance a bold and historic agenda that will lead us out of the pandemic by investing in working families and building a more equitable, climate-friendly, and competitive 21st century economy. Now is the time to build back better. For too long, teachers, nurses, caregivers, and working families in Alabama have struggled to make ends meet. In my district, where the median household income is $38,000 a year, my constituents in 2017 watched as trillions of dollars in tax cuts were handed to corporations and the wealthiest Americans by a Republican-led tax cut bill. Now, under the leadership of President Biden and congressional Democrats, we are addressing this injustice and leveling the playing field by ensuring that those at the top pay their fair share so that hardworking Alabama families can share in the promise of the American dream. In Alabama, my constituents know what is needed to create an economy that works for them. It means lowering taxes for working class and middle class families, lowering health care costs and prescription drug costs, reducing child care costs, and building upon the success of new market tax credits and other important tools to promote economic opportunities in rural and underserved communities. It also means addressing environmental injustice and the climate crisis, which will disproportionately impact Alabama farmers and minority communities. It also means 12 weeks of paid leave. Currently in Alabama, 60% of the working people are not even eligible for unpaid leave under FMLA. Mr. Chairman, this hits women and especially Black women the hardest. 83% of Black mothers are key family breadwinners in Alabama. However, Black women disproportionately work in the frontline industries that were heavily impacted by COVID. The stories I hear in my district are heartbreaking. One of my constituents is a nurse at DCH Hospital in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. While she is not caring for COVID patients at that hospital, she is caring for her 2 young children and studying to be a nurse practitioner. Several weeks ago, she tested positive for COVID-19 and was forced to take time off to quarantine. Despite being a frontline worker, she was told that she had to use her own personal time in order to quarantine. Being a mother of 2 young children and having several health concerns of her own, she was devastated to lose what little leave she was available to have. The situation put a strain on her family, and her grandmother and cousins stepped up to take care of her 2 children. Ultimately, she was devastated to have to use so much of her own hard-earned personal time because of a situation beyond her control, especially since she contracted COVID-19 from the workplace. It is stories like these that stress the urgency for our need to act today. 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave would mean that Alabama parents would not have to choose between work and family. Studies also show that paid leave benefits grows the labor force, reduces employee turnover, and increases business productivity. Paid family leave, along with many of the other social programs incorporated in this package, were constructed, examined, and vetted by the committee's Racial Equity Initiative, where I have been fortunate to serve as one of the co-chairs. I, along with Representative Horsford and Gomez, were tasked by Chairman Neal to examine the committee's racial, health, and economic equity priorities over the past 9 months. Our findings and recommendations have been incorporated by the chairman into this language, and I am proud of the work done to encourage our society's most vulnerable to have a voice in this Congress. Now is the time to act, and I would like to thank Chairman Neal, President Biden, and all of my colleagues on the committee for putting working families and underserved communities at the center of a Build Back Better agenda. Mr. Chairman, we often talk about the fierce urgency of now. I can tell you that my Alabama constituents know what is needed for them. And what they want is an opportunity to have a shared opportunity to have the American dream be true for them and their families. This very important bill will get us closer to that, And for that reason, I urge all of my colleagues to vote in favor of this Budget Reconciliation Build Back Better Act.
I thank the gentlelady. Let me recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Kelly, to strike the last word.
Thank you, Chairman.